What do you do when it's too cold or rainy or icy to be in the garden? You drag out the seed catalogs and you start planning for next spring's garden. That's what I'm doing today. I probably go a little bit overboard when I'm planning my garden for the next season. I take out an Excel spreadsheet. I start plotting where my garden beds are, start planning what I'm going to plant and putting them all together, going through the seeds that I have left over. It's a process. So come along. I'll show you what I'm doing. I apologize. We're in my quilting room because it's too wet and rainy outside to be outside, and this room has the best light. So anyway, first thing I do is I do an Excel spreadsheet of my garden layout. This has how my garden beds are arranged, all 25 beds, and then the buckets. I've marked where the perennials are. I've got asparagus up here and over here. I always put my peppers in my metal beds, which are up here. And this bed has sweet potatoes and garlic that rotate every 6 to 9 months. The round buckets in front of it is where I usually put potatoes. So that's how I start planning. Then I take out my seed box that has all of my seeds sorted and in these boxes. This is onions. And I look at what I've got so that I don't order too many of the same things. Then I go to my seed catalogs. I use Fedco, Territorial, and Johnny's quite often. The other company I use that's in the Pacific Northwest is Adaptive Seeds. And I find that Territorial and Adaptive Seeds do really well in my garden because they are Pacific Northwest companies and their seeds have been adapted to our climate and our growing conditions. Fedco is in Maine, but they have a great selection and I have phenomenal germination rates with everything I get from Fedco. I've ordered my seed potatoes and garlic from them the past few years and they've all done really well. I like the Johnny's catalog, even though it's set up for larger growing operations, market growers and gardeners than I have. But I like that they give you nice comparison photos on sizes. They give you different growing tips, growing onions, pelleted seeds, just a variety of things that just looking through their catalog, I find I can learn something from all of their charts and pictures. So even though I don't order a lot of seeds from them, I do go through their catalog and use it when I'm planning how I'm going to lay out my garden and where I'm going to plant things. The other things that I use are these two books on companion planting. Brian Lowell's book, Companion Planting for Beginners, and an older book called Carrots Love Tomatoes by Louise Riot. I don't know how you say her name. And I use this one when I'm laying out my garden because it has specific instructions and suggestions for things that don't go well together, things that you shouldn't plant together. For example, beans and onions don't do well together in the same bed. So I use this when I've drawn out my garden, what I'm going to plant. I use this to kind of finalize the layout and where things are going to go. I have ordered seeds throughout the year and I've started getting those seeds coming in and I've got to sort them and put them in my seed photo saving boxes. But some interesting ones that I got this year that I've not tried before were Astiana tomatoes. This is from a company called PDX Seeds, which is a Portland, Oregon company located very near me. And these are supposed to be a very large, indeterminate tomato. So I'm going to give them a try. We'll see what they do. I've also grown this one. This is Cherokee Carbon tomatoes, and it's a hybrid between Cherokee Purple and Carbon. So it's a black tomato. And it didn't do great for me, but I think I had it planted in the wrong spot. So I'm going to give it another try this year, move it to a different bed and see how it does. The other tomato I'm growing for the first time this year came from Adaptive Seeds, and this is called Jory, Jory. And this was an older open pollinated variety that was grown pretty extensively for canning in the Pacific Northwest, down in the Willamette Valley in the 50s and 60s. It sort of went out of favor for whatever reason. The cannery shut down. They weren't growing it as much. But I decided to give it a try. I have a friend whose last name is Jory, so I thought I'd give the Jory tomato a try and see how it does. This is a 60-day to harvest, and it's a vigorous vine, produce ox-heart-shaped multi-use fruit. When irrigated well, it is juicy, sweet, and delicious. Produces extremely well late into the season. Heritage Oregon variety. So I'm going to give it a shot and see how it does. I'm always looking for a good canning tomato for paste tomatoes and sauces, things like that. So hopefully this one will come through for me. I always plant a lot of peppers. So I've got from Territorial, I've got jalapenos. I've got some poblanos from Botanical Interest. And apparently I really liked those because I ordered 2 packs of it. I've got an Italian sweet pepper from Territorial. This one is a very sweet pepper that turns red quickly. And it's supposed to be amazingly tasty fruit. And it's great for making sweet pickles. Excellent for munching or in a salad. I'll probably use it, grind it, and add it to my smoked paprika. But we'll see how it tastes. Then I ordered more poblanos, these from Territorial. Apparently I was planning on growing a lot of poblano peppers. I don't know what came over me. I most likely forgot that I had some and ordered more. Then I have my own paprika seeds that I saved from my paprika peppers last year. I tend to go through a lot of paprika. I use it a lot in cooking. So saving seeds and adding different varieties of seeds gives me a nice paprika blend. I like a smoky, sweet paprika, so I use a variety of peppers for that. Cucumbers are always big for me. I love cucumbers. I love making pickles. I like just eating sliced cucumbers. I like them in salads. So this year I'm doing Persian cucumbers. This is a variety from Botanical Interest called Muncher. And I found that Persian cucumbers don't tend to have the pest pressure that other cucumbers have. So I'm hoping that these will grow and produce well for me. I had pretty good luck with Persian cucumbers this last year. It was a variety called Be It Alpha, and they did really well and resisted squash bugs pretty nicely. I also grow a lot of onions. For storage, I grow Patterson onions, which is a yellow onion, has a really good storage life. I've had super good luck with these in years past. My preferred onion is Walla Walla onions, but they don't store well. At most, you're going to get 6 to 8 weeks storage out of them. So I don't plant those for storage. I plant those for immediate eating. Also doing some shallots from seed this year. I've never tried that before. I've always ordered shallot bulbs, but we're going to give them a shot. These are from Adaptive Seeds, so they should be adapted well to my climate and my growing conditions. Another storage onion I'm trying is called High Keeper. This is from Territorial. And actually, I've planted these out already. I started them in the fall, planted them out, mulched them heavily, and I'm going to see if I can get an early spring crop out of them. I have my doubts, but if it doesn't work, I'll plant them in the spring and we'll get some summer onions. These are also a storage onion. And then my favorite Walla Walla onions. These I saved. I had some Walla Walla onions that sent up flower stalks, went to seed. So I saved the seeds from them, and we'll plant these out. I've also got some that I'm trying, just like the High Keeper onions. I've already put them in the beds and mulched them. Maybe a few might come up. I'm kind of skeptical, but it's worth a shot. We're going to see what happens. But I will plant these in the spring when the soil heats up a little bit. I've also got two kinds of celery, one from Botanical Interests called Marengo, and the other from Territorial called Tango. So I'm going to try both of these. I like to make my own celery salt, so we'll give it a try with each of these and see which one performs best. And then, not to be left out, I've got flowers. I plant a lot of sunflowers. I like to draw in the pollinators. I also plant nasturtiums, which are supposed to help ward off pests, but I've not found that to be the case with squash bugs. I don't know of anything that wards off squash bugs. If you do, let me know. But a lot of sunflowers. I have one from Adaptive called Better Off Red, which sounds gorgeous. So I'm hoping that that produces a really pretty red sunflower. I have American Giant. That one's from Territorial. And also from Territorial, I have Ring of Fire, which should give me a kind of a variety of yellow, golden yellow, and dark red toward the center. So we'll see how that does. And then I have Black Velvet nasturtiums. I also have some Cherry Rose nasturtiums. And the thing I like about both of these, the Black Velvet and the Cherry Rose, is that they're low growing, almost a dwarf. They don't spread a lot. So those are the seeds I've got on hand, in addition to what I've got in my photo storage boxes. I do a lot of tomatoes. I can a lot of tomatoes. I make a lot of tomato sauce and marinara. So I plant a variety of tomatoes just for that reason. One of my favorites is Cherokee Purple. This is a great slicer. It's an heirloom tomato, easy to save seeds from. These I ordered from Fedco, and just an incredible tomato. I don't have a lot of problems with blossom end rot. It does really well in my climate, and I get a really good sized tomato, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 pounds of just fantastic tasting tomato with Cherokee Purple. I've also got some Cherokee Purple from Seed Savers Exchange. The other one that I like that's an heirloom is Black Crim, which is another heirloom variety. It's a black tomato, much like Cherokee Purple, which is a dark-shouldered tomato. Black Crim has about a 75 day to maturity. These seeds I got from freeheirloomseeds.org. If you've not checked them out, I highly recommend them. They will send you free seeds. You can also make a donation, and I always make a donation to at least cover postage. And you have to follow the instructions on their website pretty specifically to get free seeds from them. But it's a great resource, and they save some heirloom and open pollinated varieties that you won't find elsewhere. Territorial, I've got a black slicing tomato. I think this is probably similar to Black Crim. And my favorite cherry tomato, which is Sun Gold or Sun Sugar. These are so good. They taste amazingly sweet. I make a cucumber tomato salad with them, or I do a caprese salad with mozzarella, Sun Gold tomatoes, and a balsamic glaze with some basil. Just, you can't beat it. It tastes like summer when you eat it. Then I've got Mortgage Lifter. Another absolute must-have in my garden is Mortgage Lifter, just for the huge size of the tomatoes. It's an heirloom variety, and the story is that it was bred during the Depression, and the breeder who bred it was able to sell enough seeds that he was able to pay off his mortgage during the Depression. So I don't know if that story is true, but it's a great tomato, great flavor, produces well for me. Always have 1 to 2 pound tomatoes from Mortgage Lifter. So that one's a must-have. And I've got some San Marzano. These were from Pine Tree Seeds. My San Marzanos didn't do great last year. They used to be my preferred sauce tomato and paste tomato, and they just didn't perform. I don't know if it was the bed they were in. I'm going to do a soil test and see if it was the soil in the bed. I don't know what it was, but they were pretty lackluster. I had great success with Amish paste tomatoes, and I've got those marked in my Fedco catalog to order because my Amish paste tomatoes come through for me every year. They always look droopy and sad. They're drama queens. They look like they're not going to do anything, and yet they just go gangbusters toward the end of the season. So they're a later harvest than the San Marzanos, but they produce twice as much as the San Marzanos do. So I'm going to stick with those this year instead of San Marzanos. So Amish paste for heirloom for sauces and paste tomatoes. Black Krim, Cherokee Purple, and Mortgage Lifter for slicing, and Sun Golds for cherry tomatoes. That's what's on deck for the tomatoes this year. Peppers. I plant a lot of peppers. I don't know why. I'm just kind of fascinated with growing them. They always do well. I have them in metal beds. All of my gardening is done in raised beds because we have such rocky soil. So I put them in the metal beds because they seem to do better there. I think the beds heat up earlier in the spring than the wooden beds do, and I think the peppers seem to like that. So that's what I do with them. I've got a paprika pepper from Adaptive, so hopefully suited to my climate and will do well. I've not grown this variety before. I've got a bulldog, I don't know how you say it, Hungarian spice pepper. It's a paprika pepper from Fedco, and I'm going to give that a try. And then I always plant a variety of bell peppers. My go-to bell pepper just for everyday use, for stuffing, for cooking, is King of the North bell pepper, which does great for us in the Pacific Northwest. It starts out green and then goes to red, so it's a really pretty pepper. And I'll be planting those. Then I also plant Purple Beauty or lilac peppers, just because they're really pretty. They have the same flavor, I think, as a green bell pepper, but they look pretty. Last year I planted Golden Star bell peppers. They were pretty. They're a nice golden color, but they didn't really perform super well for me. So that's probably not going to go back in the ground this year. Then I've got the Purple Beauty. And my other favorite bell pepper is Sweet Chocolate Bells. These produced really well for me last year. I was able to harvest a good 50, 75 of them and get them in the freezer. So I like the flavor of them. They're really mild. They don't taste like green bell peppers. They taste more like a red King of the North bell pepper, but they're really pretty. And then I've got another paprika pepper called Fair Ozon. Probably not saying it right. Forgive me. This one did okay for me last year. I planted it out late, so I didn't get a huge harvest. I would normally get a first harvest and then a second harvest. I only got the first harvest last year. So this is a maybe for me again. I like to have a variety of paprika peppers, but I'm not sure that I want to take up the space for this one since it kind of marginally produced. So that one's on the maybe list. And then I've got jalapenos, of course. I plant a variety of jalapenos, usually a chocolate jalapeno, a tam jalapeno, which came from Texas A&M, and an early jalapeno. And then I've also got one here I noticed from Seeds and Such called Mucho Nacho. So I'm going to give that one a try. My jalapenos did horribly last year. I made the mistake of putting them in a bed that had sunflowers growing in it, and I didn't realize, but sunflowers give off a hormone that can inhibit growth in certain other vegetables, namely peppers for me. So my jalapenos, I probably didn't get 20 jalapenos off 5 jalapeno plants. So it was pretty sad. So I took out the sunflowers. We're not going to put sunflowers in the growing beds. We'll put them around the perimeter of the garden, and hopefully we won't have that problem again this year. That's called an I think the term is allelopathic. And I learned my lesson the hard way on that one. The other thing I plant quite a bit of is beans, green beans, cowpeas, black-eyed peas, purple whole peas. So my preferred green beans that do well for me every year are Provider bush beans and Roma 2 bush beans. This year I've also got some asparagus beans that my sister gave me, some seeds. I think they're also called yard-long beans, and I'm going to give those a try. I also have marked in my Fedco or my Territorial catalog, I want to try some dragon tongue beans just because they're so pretty. So we'll see how those do. Then we come to squash. Honestly, squash bugs. I'm almost to the point of not growing squash because I can't keep the darn squash bugs out of my squash beds. But I did grow delicata squash last year, and I had a great harvest of that. The thing I like about delicata is even though it's technically a winter squash, you can eat it as a summer squash. And you can just slice it, toss it with some olive oil, sprinkle it with some sea salt, and put it in the oven and roast it, and it's super flavorful. You can also treat it like a winter squash and add some brown sugar. If you're in my house, add some brown sugar, roast it, and it tastes great. So I'm going to definitely do delicata squash again. I don't know about any other summer squashes just because it's not worth the aggravation to me. I'm going to let the squash bugs win this battle. Last year I planted blue Hubbard squash, which I had heard was a great trap crop for squash pests, squash bugs. And these are not squash vine borers. In the Pacific Northwest, we have squash bugs, which I swear they're little armor-clad bugs that you cannot get rid of. Blue Hubbard squash was supposed to be a trap crop and draw all the squash bugs to it instead of my summer squash. Didn't work. I didn't have a single squash bug on the Blue Hubbard squash. My yellow squash was covered. So there you have it. That's my experience with squash bugs and trap crops. I usually love to plant winter squash. I plant acorn squash and butternut squash. But again, I feel like I'm just wasting time and money and feeding squash bugs. So probably not going to do that this year. I will plant delicata and try and hand pick the squash bugs off and keep them at bay that way. That's the best I can do with squash. What else do we have? Radishes. I usually plant cherry bell and French breakfast radishes. And I plant those early and then again in the fall. So I always have a lot of radish seeds. Onions. We talked about onions. Spinach. Kind of going through my photo box here to see what I've got. Cucumbers. I always plant my favorite variety, which is called Silver Slicer. And it's a white, kind of light green colored cucumber. I got the seeds originally from freeheirloomseeds.org and then some from Fruition Seeds, which I don't think does seeds anymore. It's either Fruition or Pine Tree that doesn't sell seeds anymore. But you can also get these. I think Fedco has them. Best tasting cucumber I've ever had. It just crunchy, no bitterness, and just tastes phenomenal. I also have used it to make pickles with, and it makes great tasting pickles. So I'll definitely do Silver Slicer cucumbers. And for whatever reason, the squash bugs don't seem to bother my cucumbers. Then I also do the Persian cucumbers that I mentioned earlier. If I'm wanting just a green cucumber, I do Straight 8 or Marketmore. Those are my standard go-to varieties, and they do well here. Melons. I always grow honey rock cantaloupe, which is the only melon that I grow. I've tried to grow honeydew melons before and had no luck at all. The only cantaloupe I've had any luck with is honey rock. So we're going to give that a try and see how it does this year. They're small, but it's very prolific. What else do we have? Basil, and then more sunflowers. What a surprise! And some nasturtiums. So that's kind of where I'm going with my seed planning. What I do is take my sheet with my beds drawn out on it. I write down everything that I absolutely want to plant this year, and then I just start plugging in the beds. What does best? I've got certain beds that have, you probably can't see it, but they've got hash marks over the beds, and that means that there's a trellis there. I've got a cattle panel arch over those beds, so I know that I can put either vining beans or cucumbers or indeterminate tomatoes on those beds, because I've got a way to trellis the crop so that it doesn't just sprawl. And other than that, I don't plan to add any more beds this year. If anything, I'm going to move some. Some of these are planted, they're too close together. I can't get my gorilla cart through the aisle, and it makes it difficult to pick the produce when it ripens. So I may move some or take them out completely. At most, I'll take out 2 and then move the others. If I take out these last 2, then I can move these a little bit farther, spread them out a little bit. So I may do that. We'll see what happens when spring comes along. I may just be so excited to get my plants out there that I don't move anything, and I just get the plants planted. That's what has happened the last couple of years, even though I know that I need to move these. So that's what's happening at the Hippie Chick Homestead. I hope you're doing some great garden planning where you are, and hoping that spring comes sooner rather than later so we can get some things in the ground and get growing. Take care, y'all. Have a great day wherever you are.